Okay. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Navigating Leadership in a Family Business. I'm Pete Theron, CEO of the Home Furnishings Association, and I'll be your host for this session, which is presented by the HFA. We want this to be a highly interactive session, and we encourage you to post questions throughout the conversation using the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. We'll then answer as many of your questions as we can. Before we get started, a few quick housekeeping notes. This webinar is recorded and will be available on demand at myhfa.org/webinar. We also want to thank Synchrony, our education thought leadership sponsor, for their dedication to the industry and support of these webinars. Family businesses are the backbone of our industry, and stepping into a leadership role comes with both great opportunities and unique challenges. Today, we're joined by a fantastic panel who each bring real-world experience, both from leading family businesses and from helping others succeed in them. Let me introduce our panelists. Joe Bright is the owner of Duncan Bright Furniture, a fourth-generation family business in upstate New York. Jared Simon is the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Simon's Furniture, a fifth-generation family business in Massachusetts. Sydney Harris is Executive Director of Organizational Development at Furnitureland South, where she is focused on leadership development and organizational growth. And Rob Sly is a senior consultant with the Family Business Consulting Group and a former CEO of Sly Furniture. Thank you all for being here, and let's get right into it. Let's start out by talking about common challenges and opportunities. Joe, stepping into a fourth-generation business, what were some of the biggest surprises or challenges you faced early on?
Hi, Peter, and hi, everyone. I'm excited to be on this panel. I was thinking about this question in advance, and it almost seems cliche, but the timing of buying the business for my dad, I bought it January 1st, 2020, and then 2 months.
Perfect.
Yeah, I know, perfect, right? So you know where this is going. So it was a surprise slash obstacle to close the doors 2 months later. That was, but everybody, or many people on this call, if you were in the industry in 2020, went through that. So we closed for 13 weeks, laid off 90% of our staff, all that. It's almost, I don't want to say boring at this point, but you've heard about it so many times. So that was the biggest surprise 2 months in. I think more broadly and of things that people might expect in the future. I was surprised. So I came from a different industry background. I was working outside of the family business. I was just surprised that you can, I acquired the business via leverage buyout. And it was amazing to me that you can go to a bank, get a loan, and buy a business without money in. So that was a surprise to me. And I guess I bring it up not only to talk about how we transition the business, but also that you can do that. You can take out debt with a bank and buy a business, and owning your own business is not that far out of reach when you think about it that way.
That's a very, very practical insight. Rob, you've advised many family businesses. What patterns do you see when the next generation steps into leadership roles?
I was thinking about the imposter syndrome that many people talk about. They might say, oh gosh, I can never live up to the standards of those who preceded me, or they might be very qualified, but they've got a feeling that getting the role may have been because of nepotism. And, sometimes there's a lack of role models. Like, for example, that can be particularly relevant for women in a business. And so what we see is how to mitigate those patterns. And I think one of the best mitigation strategies is to work elsewhere first before going into the family business. And often family businesses have actually a rule that after college, certainly working during school and in the business, but after college, working somewhere else, getting a couple of promotions, some experience, it helps build self-confidence and the confidence of the organization that one is entering. Brings new value to the organization. So it's kind of a win-win. And so I often see that as a mitigation of the imposter syndrome.
Wow, that's a great insight. Jared, from your perspective, what are the biggest opportunities that come from with being part of a multi-generational company? And certainly your generation five, if I'm correct.
Yes. Well, it worked out well because I did get the job because of my bloodline. So that worked out. That was a great opportunity for me because I probably wouldn't be employed anywhere else. No,
I've done that.
no, the biggest opportunity I think is being able to, when you're in a multi-generational business and you're a member of the family that runs that business, you really get a different relationship with your family members that those that are not in the business don't have. And, I get to work with my father most days of the week, unless he decides to cut out early. But I get to have a relationship with him as a coworker, as a business partner, as a friend, and a colleague, and you have a little bit different relationship. And it's funny, as my grandfather, who's the third generation, he's 90. Some of my aunts and uncles have expressed that they're a little jealous of the relationship that my father and grandfather have from working together for 40 years, and how they joke together and do different things. And that's something you can't put a value on or a dollar amount. That's like an experience that is just, you're really lucky, and you may not know it at the time when your father's driving you crazy or your mother's driving you crazy or your grandfather or different people in the business, but you really get a relationship that you don't get at a huge Fortune 500 company or a larger corporate environment. And also, I think too, employees get a different experience. If you're not in ownership in a family business, you generally get treated better because there's an assumption that people are going to be around for a long time in a family business or a family-owned company. So you're not just trying to look at someone as a number. You want them to feel comfortable. You want them to feel like they're valued. So I tend to find that, in these multi-generational businesses, because people are thinking of a long time horizon, even the employees that are not family members, are treated like family or feel more part of the organization, I think.
So would you say, because as you admitted, sometimes family drives you crazy, but
Yes.
there's like a bond that comes from that too.
Yes. So, like, one of the things when I first got out of college and came to work for my father, he said, "You can either work with me or live with me." There was no option of both. So I, graduated from High Point University and went right to living in the city of Boston so I could work with my father, but not live with him, which was probably very healthy in the beginning.
That was a great insight on his part. Sydney, you've worked to develop leaders from within and have worked your way up. What do you think family businesses can do to prepare younger family members for greater responsibility?
Well, it sounds like Jared had some good advice to not live and work with his father. So there's the first one. Thanks again for having me, Peter. Very happy to be here. I think the biggest thing that a family member can do to prepare for another family member to enter the business is to expose them early to the business. Bring them to furniture market, bring them along to meetings. For me, it was go to work with dad or go to work with my grandparents when they were still involved in the business. And a thing that stuck out to me, and one of the reasons I wanted to get involved with family business is, yes, it's hard. Yes, it has its difficulties, but my family never talked negatively about the business in front of me growing up, knowing that there were challenges. I feel like I got to see the positive sides of the business, and then there was never pressure for me to join immediately out of college. And I did end up doing that. But I think that that exposure to the business and the opportunities in the industry as a whole, and not just in my specific family business, were critical. So that would be my advice to prepare a family member.
It's fascinating because I mean, you know, your family lived with the stress of retail. There's no way around it, and those aren't always good days. I mean, even the very best company, there are good days and there are bad days. But it's fascinating that they felt that obligation to help you prepare in that way.
Or else the next generation might not want to go into it. So, for instance,
Yeah, there
my
was an
dad,
age of eventually the true life started coming through. But I think another thing is they knew what my strengths were and didn't just try to force me into areas of the business that they knew that I wouldn't succeed in. And I think that's important, because we're involved in family businesses on the retail side doesn't mean we're going to be great sales and operations and design and merchandising. So where is that member of the family business really gonna not just contribute, but thrive? And knowing your family member's strengths is key to that.
Sydney, I was thinking as you were talking there that one of the things we do here in family businesses that don't make it into the next generation is that, you know, mom and dad always came home and they talked about all the problems. It's like, you know, it's home is where you can let your take your mask off and be real. And if there are a lot of frustrations, the temptation around the dinner table is to
Is to be real.
Yeah, to be real. But we have to realize that when we're day after day talking about the frustrations in a business, we're educating the kids that, boy, that's the last thing that I want to do is join that business. So we have to have a balanced kind of conversation at home if we expect the next generation to be enthusiastic about the possibility of joining the business. And Sydney, I just kind of picked up on that around your dinner table, there were a lot of positives.
I was actually thinking that I kind of had a similar experience growing up, that I was thinking that, you know, what would I do in the morning was I'd go to my dad's sales meeting Saturday mornings with him, maybe change some light bulbs because we had, you know, 1,000 track lights throughout the building that were always out. And then I'd work on advertising with my grandfather. And then at the end of the day, when my dad got home, I'd ask him, how were sales? And, you know, now I ask questions like, how'd deliveries go? How'd this go? Was everyone here today? You know, but it was, you know, focusing on the positives. Were sales good? Were things, you know, and kind of in doing all the fun things. Definitely made it more enjoyable to come into.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about what each of you did to kind of prepare yourself and drive your own success. So, many next gen leaders talk about the challenge of earning credibility, especially when team members have known them since they were kids or work side by side. Jared, how did you approach earning trust and employee confidence?
You have to you have to earn it by work, by showing that you can work. Like I used to work in restaurants before when I was in high school, and into college as well. And one of the things I learned from one of my managers, that was my favorite manager at a dining club in Franklin, was she would do anything. Like she would literally pick up dirty dishes. She'd pick up trays. She'd be in a dress or you know, nice pantsuit, and she wouldn't be afraid to get her hands dirty. And I think you really have to do that, as even more so in a family business, because they're always going to be that assumption that you got your job because of your last name, because of who you are and everything. So you got to lead by example. By, for example, if you come in, there's a piece of trash in the parking lot, pick it up. If there's something that's out of line, you know, fix that. You know, you might be the, you know, guy who's, you know, cleaning the bathroom one day or something, just to keep, you know, that sense of pride and show that you care about the place, that this just isn't a paycheck for you. You have some pride in the business as well. And also helping out your team members, you know, trying to show them that, you know, provide value to them, that, you know, if your sales staff has a question, you know, sometimes I might be on the floor working for them while they're with two customers or something, or there's different ways to add value, not add value, but show value, that you're there to help your employees succeed, and that you're there for the business to succeed. You're not just here to suck out a paycheck and milk the thing till it dies. And I think people recognize that. I think, you know, when they see you loading a truck or helping a customer out the door, or, you know, maybe getting a wheelchair for a customer, or holding an elevator, or cleaning up fabric samples, or doing the kind of the minuscule stuff that, you know, helps the operation go on, people appreciate that. Like, wow, the owner picks up fabrics that were left out, that were not his mess
Yeah.
or something, and didn't ask someone else to do it, just did it. And I think that's really important, especially if you're trying to uh, gain trust and gain buy-in from the staff, that you're there for success, not just to be
So
there.
kind of proving yourself through humility, sort of, if
Yes.
I'm putting words in your mouth. I mean, that's
Yes.
a fantastic leadership approach. Sydney, similarly, what strategies have you seen work best for developing credibility with both family and non-family team members?
I definitely agree with things that Jared said. And, you know, Rob earlier mentioned gaining credibility from working outside of the business, which is absolutely a great idea and works very well for some people. That was not my path. I joined our team upon graduating from college and immediately worked on the sales floor for a year. So For me, it was there's no substitute for hard work. And instead of me coming up and saying, you know, I'm third generation, I'm going to join the family business and I'm going to work really hard, I just said, I'm joining the sales team and I'm going to work really hard. And that's what I did. And kind of practicing what you preach a little bit. I really wanted to gain the respect of my family, my colleagues, my coworkers, and now the team that works underneath me. So nothing happens in retail until you make the sale, and understanding and learning our business from that side first made me curious about every other part of our business. And so as I've grown in my tenure with the company, I've been able to slowly explore every single one of those different things that touches that sales process. So totally agree with Jared. There's no substitute for hard work. And when you have that culture of, just like he said, picking up the trash or popping the pillows and making sure the showroom looks nice as you're walking through, people notice that, and they want to work not just for, but they want to work with somebody that has that attitude. And that's just part of the culture that we've built here.
So you took earning trust and credibility very, very seriously in that way. I mean, that's impressive. It is. Rob, from your consulting experience, what's one piece of advice you'd give a new family business leader about earning respect from longtime employees?
Yeah, let me just briefly tell a story from my own experience after I came back from working elsewhere. I joined our family business, Sly Furniture Company, and of course, we were always admonished, the next generation, be the first to come into work. You know, show that you can be at the lead of hard work, as some of the others have said. So I used to be first one into the office, and I would park the car near the front door because nobody else was in the parking lot on the office side. And one time somebody said to me, hey, why do you have a reserved parking spot and nobody else does? Well, it's just because I always parked in the same spot every day. And so from then on, even though I was first to come to work, I parked away from the front door in order to demonstrate that, no, we don't have any reserved parking, because the culture that we wanted to create was, you know, your name doesn't have to be on the door to be part of the family, and we don't have any reserved parking spots or any other differentiations of that type. But I think, just building on some of the things that have been said, longtime employees are like any employees, that, you know, if you can come across with a sense of humility, make sure that you're listening to people, and, you know, beyond serving customers and dealing well with suppliers and serving your community, also make sure that you are personally serving the interests of employees. And I think, you know, if you can sincerely do that, then it earns respect, not just from long-term employees, but from everyone.
You know what I love about your example, Rob, is it means you are going to be judged differently than everyone else because of the name on your business card. And there was nothing wrong. There was no status, no privilege involved in where you parked, but people interpreted it that way anyway. And you have to be vigilant for that. It doesn't matter if it's fair. It's just how people will interpret things differently because of that. And you should be aware of that and prepared to avoid any bad feeling because of something that has nothing to do with you. But so
Yeah,
what? That's how people think.
I was tempted to say to myself, and I think many of us are, that, hey, I'm just Rob. But as a family member, you are not just
No.
Rob.
Yeah.
You've got to
Yeah.
be much more vigilant.
Um, okay. Let's talk about how you manage effective communication, and particularly across generations of leadership in a company. Rob, communication is often at the heart of a family business. And what are some of the practices that improve transparency and reduce conflict?
You know, one of the things that I think is a fantastic idea is to have a board with independent directors. And interesting thing is that what we have found through studies is that over the long run, on average, family businesses who have boards with 3 or more independent directors perform better than those who don't. And often, years after creating a board with independent directors, family owners are apt to say it was one of the best decisions they ever made. And so when you get into issues of shareholders outside of the business say we want more dividends, shareholders inside the business who are also leaders want to reinvest, and you have this conflict. Or why are the leaders getting paid and we're getting not much in dividends? How is that fair? A board of directors with independent directors can really be helpful. Typically, they are trusted by all constituencies. They are experienced in helping work through those kinds of conflicts. And they also, because of their interest in the business and their need to know certain information, they encourage transparency. I remember working as a consultant with a family business who was just starting to create a board, and they had a friend who was on the board, and the outsider was a good director. And so I was charged with recruiting some additional directors. And I said to that person, do you want to stay on the board? He said, yes. And I said, well, how are the board meetings going? And he said, well, it's a funny thing. I've never seen any financials. And I said, well, we're going to have to cure that, because you can't be a good board member if you don't have financials that are being discussed. So it can help with transparency, and it can reduce conflict, a board with 3 or more independent directors.
Interesting. Joe, how do you and your family maintain open dialogue about decisions or differences in vision for the company?
So the way we're structured, and I know there's all different ways that people have divided up their family responsibilities in a especially a furniture business, but so I'm the sole owner of our operating company of the furniture company, and then my dad and my brother and I co-own the real estate, and that's what's worked for us. It kind of works out that way in terms of owning the real estate is not the day-to-day operations, the hands-on, what we talked about before the call, unloading the truck when you have to. You don't have to do any of that owning the real estate. And my family gets to be financial investors without the same, all those things that come along with owning the furniture company. And then in terms of communications, Jared kind of touched on it earlier. I just like it's a reason, an opportunity to talk to your family about things that matter. Talk about the business you're both invested in. And, I keep in touch with my dad more. I keep in touch with my brother more. The family members that aren't involved with the business, they like hearing updates as well over Thanksgiving whenever I see them. So it's not really a communication strategy, but I guess I would just say it's an organizational strategy that we have with the real estate operating company split, and the communications are more informal, but talking about the businesses brings us together.
Well, it's a fairly informal communication strategy, but it's a function of a very conscious decisions about structure and organization that you already made.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it's worked for us, really. It's yeah, and then because, well, a bigger business, you might have more family members involved in the operating company, but we're 2 stores. It's it's worked for us to just have one person involved in the operating company.
Yeah.
And
We
now you
actually
have
very
two
similar.
kids, Joe, that are going to come up, and one's going to have one, one's going to have the other, right? Three and one. When do they start?
Each store,
That's
yeah.
longer term vision there, Sydney. Yeah.
Some days I hope
So-
that for them. Some days I hope I hope they do some whatever else they want. But
There are days it's the perfect job for them and days not so much. Yeah, got it. Sydney, you're focused on organizational development.
Mhm.
What tools or habits have you seen help teams and family members communicate better?
It's a great question. As far as tools, it's easy for us to keep communication lines open. We're one company, we're on one campus, across a couple different buildings, but we're all in person. So the key for communication for us is regularly having in-person meetings, making sure that everyone that needs to be in that meeting is present. Stakeholders are there. We do a ton of work across departments to ensure that we all have the same vision, and strategic mindset for whatever project we're working on. But I have to give huge kudos to our executive team. My dad has curated an executive team that truly they feel like an extension of our family and of our ownership of their areas of the business. So we don't run it just as the family's not just running it, the extended family that we have in our executive team and our managers below that, they're incredible. They truly do take the direction that my father gives and add their own insights and knowledge to it. And that's what helps us keep these open lines of communication. As far as habits, early on, I learned to not wait until you need someone to get to know them. With a company as large as ours is becoming, we're just shy of 600 employees. We all wear a lot of different hats, and I found myself as I learned more about the business, needing more help. I had more questions and I had answers, and I really wanted to dive into the business. And instead of just asking questions when I had them, I just started getting to know more people on our team so that when I did go to ask them a question, I'd already had a relationship built with that person. And I think when you do that, you open up the communication line before you even need it. And then you're able to operate in a way
Wow.
that's not out of necessity, but that's just out of, hey, we're teammates. We're on the same team and we all want the same thing at the end of the day. So my approach to that was truly people first.
Wow.
I thought it was interesting too, Sydney, that you were just talking about with other individuals that are managers in the company, how you kind of value them as family members. One of the things that's interesting too is that you talk about the ownership of their each division or what they run, and that was making me think that one of the biggest challenge I think in any family business is having direct roles, titles, and job descriptions. In a larger company like you, where you have 600, everybody has to because there has to be some kind of structure. But even in my business as a smaller single store operator, we have operations manager, warehouse manager, general manager, sales manager, like different people, and you have to respect their individual roles and make sure that you don't have three people doing the same role because you'll drive each other crazy because you'll just be competing for power instead of actually moving the organization forward.
Very good. Yeah, very good point. Jared, this might be one of the toughest questions, and I'm sure we'll have opinions from several of our panelists on this. How do you approach difficult conversations or disagreements within the family business constructively?
Um, I've always growing up in the business, my grandfather told me that anybody can be right as long as you make an argument for your rationale and reasoning. So he said that was the best and worst advice he ever gave a 14-year-old because then he had to listen to me from then on out. But a lot of it was, they basically both my parents and grandfather taught me over time that, don't just show up in here and say, hey, I got an idea. They asked me a million questions, girl, how is this? How are you going to do that? Where's this going? What's that doing? What's this cost and whatnot? So I got kind of used to it that, geez, they're not going to go along with me unless I really can explain my vision or why we're doing it or what's the strategy behind it and use rational arguments. And I think that in the furniture business, a lot of people talk about, why do you do something some way? Well, it's the way my father did it. And if you go ask their father, it's the way his father did it. And if you go ask my grandfather, he'll say because it was his grandfather. So sometimes change can be difficult, but um, if you have a good um, if you can prove it's going to make money, benefit the organization, benefit the employees, benefit the community, and be a good thing all around, generally I find that the family will go along with it. It's when you don't have that kind of a business model, you're just kind of throwing stuff out there, then they're probably not going to go along with you because they don't see a reasoning to. So you got to kind of look at their perspective and kind of put yourself in their shoes, and why would it make sense for them to agree to do what you want to do, if that makes sense.
Teaching you the skills to sell your ideas, regardless of the fact your name was Simon,
Yes.
was really what it sounded like they did for you in that case.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. You just talked about something that is, I'm sure, a stress on everyone as they are a multi-generational business and it's evolving over time. And that is how you balance tradition and innovation. So, Joe, family businesses often take pride in tradition and justifiably. That's how a business oftentimes was built, through these great traditions. How do you decide which traditions to preserve and where it's time to innovate?
I mean,
Oh,
I guess, oh, what, can you not hear me? You can hear me, right?
yeah.
Okay. I mean, I guess if a tradition works, you keep doing it. We have a marketing tradition. We've been doing it for 50 years around St. Patrick's Day. We, run do our most advertising, promote lowest prices of the year, serve Irish coffee, serve champagne, have Irish dancers come in the store, and it
Sounds
works.
great to me.
It is great, and people keep coming back, and
Yeah.
our sales are fantastic. So that's a tradition because it keeps working. We, keep doing it. But I mean, the majority of what we need to do each year is innovate or change what we're doing. I mean, how we promote and advertise that sale is changes each year, honestly. So 50 years ago, we weren't promoting it on YouTube and Facebook and social media and all that. So I don't want to say unfortunately, but I guess it's unfortunate because it's a challenge. You almost have to innovate, especially in marketing, is what I think about all the time. You have to innovate in marketing over and over again each year. It seems like so. So I guess I keep
It's funny,
it to work.
the phrase "because we've always done it that way" can be a hot button for people in both ways. Oftentimes, people are saying it because they're defending something that's been an important part of the business for a long time, and with good reason. Other times, people, they immediately want to say, just because we've always done it that way, we should change it. Well, smart people, I say frequently, smart people made that decision at one time. Let's make sure we understand why.
Mhm.
And it still might be the right decision to change it, but let's understand why they did it that way in the first place. There might be learnings that will help our new idea be an even better new idea.
Yeah, it's valuable to know why you did something. I feel like the majority of the time we're changing what we did in previous years, but the things that work and we keep doing those. So
They were great ideas at one time.
yeah.
So, well, Jared, Simon's Furniture has a very long history. How have you balanced honoring that legacy while introducing new ideas, especially in marketing and emerging new marketing approaches in the digital realm, et cetera?
Absolutely. So it's like kind of I look at it as over the 5 generations, each one did something unique to stay in business, basically. Because I kind of think that there is an aspect of evolve or die in businesses, and having the next generation coming in and, taking it to the next level or doing the next development. So I kind of look at, well, we go back to the 1930s when we built our first showroom, but in the 1960s and 70s, my grandfather helped form an appliance buying group because that was a competitive disadvantage that we couldn't buy appliances correctly. Then in the 80s, my father automated the company and built our modern showrooms and warehousing. Now my job since coming in 2015 has been how do we leverage we have these distribution capabilities, we have these physical plants built out. How do we develop the digital and internet aspect of it to get a return on our existing assets? So that's been a lot of my job the last 10 years or so, has been working on our website and e-commerce, migrating our advertising from print and phone books to digital and television, while we also were riding the television decline now. but it's not anything different. Like we still have core principles that, are same from my grandfather, that he created that we still use. Like, for example, in our merchandising, we always want to make sure we're selling quality, custom American-made furniture. It's got to meet one of those three, or we don't have it. That's something that's been kind of in our DNA as a quality furniture store for 115 years. Same thing on how customers are treated. We want them to treat like guests in our home. And, that's the same as when a customer walked in the showroom in 1970 or when they walk in the showroom in 2025. How you treat people is, that's a tradition that you want to keep forever. But it's about how do you evolve. Like we used to put out 32-page, 40-page catalogs of styled furniture in these beautiful room settings. Now we view it that our website is our catalog. And so you put all the effort into that. So it's not so much that we're changing these, big traditions that we no longer do. It's just evolving the traditions that we did in the past for today's uh, atmosphere or today's world.
You touched on something briefly there. Principles and values are different than tactics. Tactics
Exactly.
can change. If you're going to change a principle or a value, that's a pretty substantial decision. Changing tactics is a relatively light decision, so long
Exactly.
as it's consistent with the principles and values that built your brand.
Exactly.
Sydney, innovation can sometimes feel like a threat to how we've always done things. How do you encourage innovation while respecting the company's roots?
Mhm. You said something really important earlier about begging the question of, well, this is the way we've always done it. Why change it? You do have to understand why it is that way now. And then you also understand why change it. What's the risk and reward? And we do a lot of pro-con conversations around our executive table. But I have to give kudos to my father, Jeff, who's constantly challenging us to think outside of the box, to challenge the status quo. We're not afraid to change, to switch up strategies, to do something a little bit crazy or different. Now I'm thinking about Irish dancers and what did you say, Joe? Irish coffee and
Irish
champagne.
Yeah,
coffee,
We
yeah.
love new
we're all thinking
ideas.
about that. Yeah.
Well, closing goes up for sure.
I love that. But I have to say that when you have the mindset of changing the status quo all the way at the top, it trickles down to every level. And now you have a team that's not thinking, well, we're always doing it because that's the way we did it. It's, well, what can we do differently? And what are the advantage of doing something differently? If there's anything that's true about the furniture business, it's that it is not stagnant, especially not in the last, let's just say 5 years. Things are changing. How the customer shops is changing, and we have to be ahead of that. Or we're all in trouble as retail. People are saying retail's dying. Well, how do we stay 5 steps ahead of that? I believe that the customer still wants to come and sit, see, touch, feel the furniture that they're going to buy. Everybody on this call has to believe that, or we're not here anymore. But I think you can stay true to your roots while trying to always think about ways to better and not stay stagnant. You do have to stay true to your roots. And the way that we do that are a lot of the things that Jared mentioned. We're going to stay true to the way we treat our vendor partners, the way we treat our customers, and most importantly, the way we treat our employees, which is with honesty and integrity and putting them first. And then all that marries together in this beautiful picture of improving the journey for every single one of those groups and the client and staying up to date with how they want to shop. One example of how we've recently challenged the status quo is, all of us are talking about AI and what does that mean for our businesses? And we know that traditionally the furniture industry is a few steps behind when it comes to technology. And we realized that about ourselves and our business. So we hired a third party AI consultant business to come in and really look at our systems and processes and how we're doing things and really advise us on next steps of how we stay current and modern in this ever-changing world of AI. And it's been really, really eye-opening and beneficial. And for anyone on the call that's curious about that, I'm happy to share additional information.
Rob, Sydney a couple of times has talked about one of the advantages she has is innovation and change is often led by the generations before her, which is makes being able to continue to drive other innovations perhaps easier. What have you seen in family businesses where they have to have more difficult conversations to drive change across generations?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that the family members need to discuss and agree upon what's the purpose of our engaging together in a family enterprise. And, there's a reason why businesses generally don't go more than a few generations. It's because pretty soon, not everybody has the same love of the core business. As an example, when I joined the furniture business as the only fourth generation person in the Sly Furniture Company, Dad was the CEO, and I had two uncles working in the business. One of the uncles loved the furniture business, just like Dad and I did, and the other not so much. He really loved boats. He used to own a marina. He came into the furniture business, and it wasn't his first love. So he wanted to cash in his chips and buy a boat and kind of an antique boat manufacturing company, which we were able to buy his stock, and he bought that company, and it was, his dream going forward to continue to run that. And when he retired, he was able to sell it. So the first thing is to agree upon a purpose of engaging together. There may be some advantages of keeping the capital together, of seeing each other regularly, of love of the business, but also to keep your antenna quivering about, who's not all in on this, who doesn't love the business that we're in, and what can we do to help them accomplish their dreams, which is part of, I think, a bigger picture of family harmony, which is really a broader objective. Let's have family harmony versus let's keep this business going the way it is, because business can be a means of achieving family purpose, but it's not the purpose itself.
Well, and Rob just alluded to something that I think is kind of an important topic, which is when there are transitions in leadership and you're envisioning them and planning for them. Joe, you took a different approach than perhaps other families might have taken. How did your family approach making decisions about how the company should be handled going forward, what future leadership should look like, allow you to make that kind of decision?
Sure. And this is not how we did it, but I've heard so many different ways of how people have transitioned their family furniture business. It's like there's as many ways you can think of, but I know one guy, his dad said, look, you can have the business. You don't have to pay me. Just pay me a salary until I die of X amount. And he agreed to that. And then his dad lived to 102, like 40 years. So it turned out to not be as good a deal. But, I guess some of the ways things we thought about, my dad thought it was a good idea to get an appraisal done of the business independently. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that. I have 3 siblings. He didn't want any of them to feel like something was given or a big gift was given to me when maybe they didn't get that. So an independent appraisal made sure it was a fair price. And then, I mean, there's also tax implications of that. If your family is gifting you something of value, you have to pay tax. So an independent appraisal helps substantiate a sale price in transitions. So that was big part of how we did what we did. And then I think I already touched on it. We did it via leverage buyout. The business has value. It should be paid for. But like I said, I know there are so many different ways to transition a business, and ways that you don't have to put debt on the business, which is advantageous for a lot of reasons. But in this instance, at least with us, it was helpful for my dad to get completely out in terms of ownership of the operating company, and LBO is the best way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about something that's important when there are multiple family members involved and multiple family members who are not involved, is there being transparency and integrity. in any kind of change in the business, so that the whole family is comfortable with it, even if they're not participating. They're
Yeah,
still observing it, and you don't want the family relationships to be damaged by that if it can be avoided.
it's never come up, but if it ever did, it's good to have a document that you can point to and say, this is how we
Yeah.
determine the sale price. I mean, for family and the IRS. So it
Oh
serves a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
purposes.
Well, there's that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that other part of the family. Yes. Jared, as a fifth generation leader, how are you preparing for the next phase of your company's leadership?
Ooh, well, right now I am single and I don't have any kids. We're in the panic mode pretty soon at 32. No, but um, basically, I always look at myself as, you know, the company will have to run someday without me. So I have to remember that I'm also an employee here. So I always look at my two hats basically. One is that I'm an owner of the business and I'm a steward of the capital, steward of the organization, but also I have a job in the organization. So my theory is that in the long run, in the next 30 or 40, 50 years, is that I'll be able to put someone into the role I'm currently doing and I'll transition into a different role as general manager or something like that as we move in. So it kind of comes back down to having job descriptions and titles so you can fill those roles as you move up, because I assume someday my father will fully retire and not want to come in here every day. So then I would probably put someone in my role and I would end up taking his role as the general manager. And then, when I'm 90 or 85, maybe I'll still want to run the place and be an owner, but I probably won't want to be, the general manager. So I may put someone else in that role at some point. That's kind of how I view it. But I don't have kids, so I don't have anyone to pressure to come into the business yet. But I do always think about my age and add 20 years and then think that would be what age would I be when someone starts to come work for me? So it's definitely becoming a little more top of mind these days, I would say.
Well, Sydney, what can family businesses do now to ensure continuity and sustainability for years to come?
Well, a huge part of it is exactly what Jared just said. Who's next? Who do you have that's sitting, waiting to join the business, or that is within your organization that you want to continue to nurture and develop to step up in management roles and leadership roles? And you can't just wake up one day and think, oh yeah, now they're ready. Now I can promote that person, or now I can bring that member of the family into the business at this executive director role. Like, you have to think about that well before, and you have to have a plan for it. So just the way that the business is always going to evolve, your team should be evolving as well. But you have to constantly think, who's going to be my predecessor? Who's going to come, or my successor? Who's going to come after me? Who am I growing up on my team right now that can fulfill the shoes that I have on right now, so that I can grow? And I think in general, my grandfather taught me this a long time ago. If you help people get to where they want to go, they're going to help you get to where you want to go. And that's all about building a team and having a whole group of people that are rallying behind the mission of the organization and being ready to not just have those people boost you up, but to reach back down and grab them and pull them up as you're going as well. And as far as, continuation and sustainability, while that is being said, you have to build the team, but you have to continue to work on the business. And that's staying up to date on some of the things we've been talking about, whether it's new marketing initiatives or knowing what AI is going to do for our business, the current landscape, of the tariffs and all the things that are going on. You have to be knowledgeable about every area of this industry so that you're not blindsided by a change, or you don't have all your eggs in one basket. And that takes a lot of people and a lot of vision. But if we stay with our blinders on, we don't have a plan for sustainability long term. So got to keep your eyes up, and also be looking behind you to see who's coming next.
Very good. Very good. Let's put out a couple of general questions to kind of the larger group. If you could give one piece of advice to someone stepping into leadership with a family business, what would that one piece of advice be?
I have one. I would recommend that someone coming into a family business find a mentor that is outside of your family and outside of your business. That has been critical to me in my professional and personal development is having somebody that I can call who doesn't have all the backstory of what's going on within the organization, but can really lead me and guide me to talk through the decision-making process, and make a good, sound decision on something, without knowing all of the feelings and the things that we know, being around the table with our family. So getting a mentor is critically important.
A great insight.
Yeah, that
Other
is.
thoughts?
And that made me think, our industry has a lot of performance groups, which have been that for me, is joining a performance group. You can talk to store owners in different markets and find mentors, share financials, get advice about running a furniture stores. Because locally, you don't want to talk about that with your competitors probably, and there's not a ton of furniture stores owners out there anyway. So join a performance group and get some feedback from other store owners.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
I'd
networking
agree
helps.
with that. And I would point out that Young Presidents Organization, which I joined in 1991, has been, really valuable to me. We have a forum group. We've been meeting for over 30 years. And so we've seen the ups and downs of each other's businesses and family life. And I think one of the things I'd point to, that you learn from peer groups like YPO Forum is that everybody has struggles, everybody has failures, life is finite, and our job is to learn from the ups and downs of life that are inevitable and keep trying to improve. And if we have that in mind, we'll be fine.
Jared, what are your thoughts?
I was going to mention that I lost my train of thought as I was thinking of it. Just stepping in, no, I think that definitely networking and having other people you can talk to is key. Like I spend a lot of time on the phone with my grandfather talking business, and he is 90, so he's not going to be here forever. But I also have been able to make connections in the furniture business through HFA, through the CXOs events that the HFA's put on, and just networking at market. I got a good group of friends I can text and ask questions about, furniture business or just talk furniture, because not everyone can talk furniture. I don't know if you guys know that.
No, early on when I first came into this business, I found, I don't know if I'd quite call him a mentor, but a key colleague who ran a similar company in another city. So there was zero competitive issue there. But he was very, very generous with me. And I don't think he realizes, I actually recently told him how much he helped me. I mean, I think he thought he was, I mean, just doing what anybody would do, was having some good quality conversation about the business. It was really meaningful and helpful for me. It helped me sharpen my approach and my thinking.
I remember
What
having conversations about furniture, waiting on Sydney's grandfather and grandmother at String and Splinter Club in like 2012, way back at High Point. But it was just another example of
That's
being able to
cool.
network and talk with people, which was pretty cool. And your family was very cool people, definitely.
Thank you.
Sydney.
What is a tradition of your family's business that has really stood the test of time? Meaning you view it as a success driver and one that differentiates and creates value and creates a brand.
I'll say we always start with that. We want customers for life. We're not interested in picking up $100 today or $150 today. We really want that customer to be with us for life. And so we don't try to, make short-term decisions that damage the customer's expectation. We always want them to have a highly regard us and our company. And even if that sometimes means that, hey, you might not make a sale, or servicing this customer is going to cost you a lot more and you didn't make money on that sale after the end of the day. Or if something, maybe your delivery guys damaged their house and you got to fix it. You gotta do it. You gotta treat the customers. Don't worry about the expense. You gotta have a long, long, long time horizon. And that's something I think that's true, to this day. I mean, we have multi-generational customers. I don't care about the, small issue that's today. I want them to be my customer for 30, 40, 50 years.
I'm sheepish to even say so it's worked for us to be, I'm sheepish to say large format in the presence of of Sydney. But yeah, so not 80 to 90,000 square foot stores are large format for us. And trying to be the best in your market in terms of selection has worked for us. And, and other stores, you have 40,000 square feet, they can't show as much. And we feel like if the customer comes in, they can find everything they want at our location. So that's at least in upstate New York, that'll do the trick.
Wonderful. Sydney.
I think for us, we place a lot of value on our relationships with our vendors. Jared nailed it from the customer standpoint. We want to do the same thing. We want customers for life, but to be able to do that, you've really got to have support from your vendors as well. And I remember very early on, being brought around the business and not really understanding, like, why are we going to downtown High Point? Why are we hugging all these people in random stores down the line? Like, what are we doing? And it's because it's like a family reunion at market. I mean, we have business, and just like the story Jared said, people all the time are like, man, I miss your grandparents. We love doing business with them, and we loved being around them and sharing meals. And what other industries can really say that? We live in a very cutthroat world these days, and everyone's trying to take out the guy right under them. But I truly feel like the furniture industry values relationships, and holding that true is very important in the good times, but also in the hard times and when business is tough. And you've got to think outside of the box and be creative with your vendor partners on driving business and really operating in a different way. So I would definitely say relationships is something that we value, and we will continue to do that.
Yeah, I completely forgot about the supplier aspect of it, but that's definitely a huge thing for us is, you got to be partners with your suppliers and friendly with them and not have an adversarial relationship. It won't be pleasant.
Home furnishings is an enormous industry that is very, very small.
Yeah.
The person that you are every day with everyone you do business with is meaningful and well known. I couldn't agree with you more, Sydney. Well, we're running out of time, and this has been a wonderful conversation today. I had a really good feeling coming into it. I thought we had a great group of people who would share wonderful insights to talk today, and I've really enjoyed talking with all of you. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughtful insights, and a big thank you to Synchrony, who sponsors these webinars and makes this kind of engagement, learning, interaction possible. Today's discussion reminds us that leadership in a family business isn't just about titles. It's about trust, earning communication, trust, and vision. To our audience, thank you for joining us. We hope you leave inspired with new ideas to strengthen your own leadership journey. Our next webinar is Thursday, November 20th. This webinar will be about developing tomorrow's leaders today, not a distant topic from a lot of what we've been talking about today. But until then, thanks for tuning in and trusting the Home Furnishings Association to support your success. Thank you, everyone.